everybody, and welcome to EntrepreNINES. I'm John Wist.
And I'm Bonni Mace. We are two Enneagram 9s who took the big leap into the world of entrepreneurship at a similar time, and this podcast is a space where we are inviting you to laugh and learn with us as we work to build businesses with soul. This is episode 49.
49. Crazy. One more till 50. That is kind of nuts.
Guys, we're going to do something very cool.
We got to figure it out.
TBD. But this is very cool, episode 49 too.
Yes, because we are going to do just some of our reaction and our feedback from our conversation.
Takeaways, if you will.
I think
that's the word you wanted, right?
That is the better word for it.
Yes.
I don't want to give any feedback.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like, I have a suggestion for Jason.
And that's not really what I meant at all. No. So takeaways.
Yes, because we're learning
here.
From our
conversation with Jason Raitz from Speak With People in episode 48. If you didn't listen to it, go back. It's a great episode. Jason is an Enneagram 4. And we just had a really awesome episode. But first, this episode is sponsored
by us.
Because Work Like a 9 is going to be closing very, very soon.
Yes, we're closing the doors.
Yes. So
the virtual doors.
We've talked about this on an episode, but just to rehash it here, Work Like a 9, we feel like is becoming a great place for people to grow themselves as business leaders. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's really hard to kind of have a revolving door.
Yeah. That's what we've learned.
Yeah, we're developing relationship. We're getting to know each other. We're understanding kind of what we need as a group. And so instead of continuing to try to adjust that all the time, it's better for us to say, hey, we're going to close it off for 6 months, and in 6 months we'll open it back up.
And big push. And
so
don't miss out.
Bonni,
what
is Work Like a 9?
Work Like a 9 is our virtual co-working group. We meet once a month for an hour live. And then in between days, we have a Voxer channel where we can chat and communicate. And I drop some conversation prompts. Yeah. Usually on a weekly basis. There are times that I do lose track, I have noticed. Okay. And really, we are definitely finding our voice in our stride. John and I will bring teaching sometime. We will have a hot seat sometimes where somebody comes with a specific problem that is unique to their company, their business, or even just their personal, what they're bringing as a leader in that point. And then the other thing that we've started doing that has honestly proven to be so beneficial is to sort of just give ourselves an assignment and set a timer and knock it out. And so that's what we've done the last 3 months. And that will be a recurring thing as we kind of look ahead to seasons like summer. Where I don't know about how you're feeling about it, but all hell's about to break loose, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's going to get crazy. And I think it's the same thing when we come around to, what we've learned, right, as business owners is it's seasonal. No matter what business you're in. Because life is seasonal. And so things like summer, things like Christmas, all of those times to be able to have some set aside time to really process and prepare for those times. That's, I think we're learning a really helpful part of being in this group.
And it's just a fun, supportive group of people. And it's a steal of a deal.
Oh my goodness. $9 a month.
That's it. And you can cancel anytime.
Yeah.
Because we're not jerks.
We're not jerks.
We
may close it for people to come in, but you can leave whenever you want.
You can leave if you have to leave. We'll be sad. We'll still support you. And give all your socials likes and love and all. That's what I do that. You don't get on social media. I do.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. But we would love to have you before the doors close. Our next meeting is June 18th. Is that right? Is that the right word?
That is correct. Okay.
And we will close the doors to join after that. I'm now poking at my watch to make sure June 17th is actually the date.
Well, there
it's
you
a
go.
Monday.
Okay.
So please join us.
Yeah.
EntrepreNINES.com.
EntrepreNINES.com. Join us for Work Like a 9. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yes.
Of takeaways.
Selecting and takeaways. Yes. I even forgot the word takeaways just then.
It's okay. I almost said feedback again. So, okay. So Jason, just thank you again to Jason for taking the time to come out and talk to us. Check out Speak With People. Really awesome organization. So Bonni, because you're the expert,
I'm the Enneagram person.
You're the Enneagram person.
Great.
Just give me some like off the top thoughts about kind of our more Enneagram focused part of the conversation with Jason about his type 4, how that showed up in business and in ministry and all of those things.
Okay. One thing I enjoy about him is he was like a great example of knowing enough to grow.
Yeah.
With your Enneagram stuff, right? Like, I think sometimes people get intimidated when they start to learn Enneagram because they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. And like, even the deep dives we go through, it feels like a lot of detail. But what I could hear in his conversation was like, he's cued on the pieces that help him to grow more whole.
Sure.
And so he didn't know everything. And there were even times that he was like, well, maybe I'm a 3. Maybe I was a 3 then. Maybe I was a 4.
Or like, maybe I'm a different 4. Or like I'm a,
which also very 4th. So, I loved it. But I do love that he's been able to latch on and use what helps him.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I particularly noticed and appreciated, one I said in the episode, so I won't repeat it here, but the other thing I noticed about him is the tendency for a 4, and honestly, this is something I deal with as a 9, is to let my inner world drive my outer choices. And to let my inner perspective drive how I view success.
Yeah.
And you could hear that he has that tendency, but he knows about it.
Right. He's self-aware of it.
Right. Yeah. And so he has really, especially, I mean, you could hear he kind of did it through pastoring and working in some really intense environments before he even planted on his own, but then realizing he had to shift his outside gauges. Yeah. When he started to speak with people. Yeah. And to hear him just constantly refer to things outside of him to remind him what's right, I think was really cool to hear.
Yeah. And that was something that I think I caught in the recording when we were doing it with him as well, was like just having the opportunity to do the deep dive ahead of time, understand how much like shame and doubt is a part of like that inner turmoil for a 4, and then to hear him kind of process, like the movement, ministry, entrepreneurial stuff, but then all the messiness that happened with all of it, like to hear him move through that, it was like, oh, like there's still some,
it's there.
There's still some of that there.
Right.
It's not gone.
Right.
But you've clearly like obviously had time to process it in some way, and he talked about counselors and mentors and things like that. So, I mean, I think he's done some of that work, good business partners. Right. And so it was interesting though, to still pick up on that. And it was something that, again, having some personal relationship and being with him, for that conference, it was like, I think he's worried. There were times where it's like, I think he's worried that this isn't working out. And then to be able to say it to him, I think at the end of that week, it was like, I know this, like there were parts of this probably didn't go the way you thought. Right. But like, this was really, really good. Yeah. And so for him, I think, again, like to your point, like listen to some of that external feedback
and receive it. Huge.
Build on it and actually like take it somewhere versus the inner turmoil. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I mean, you can hear it in some of his 4's are visionaries. Yeah. Because they can picture just this perfect, ideal, like beautiful thing where you were even talking about some of the details that were in that first conference and how it didn't feel like somebody's first conference. Yeah. No. And that's a very 4 leadership to think through the details. But the thing with having a perfect image in your head is then it's never going to come to perfect fruition because this is Earth. Right. Yeah. And so, exactly. and that can be really hard for a 4, and they can shut down any positive feedback because they know everything that didn't live up to what they hoped and for their vision. So just the work and health that goes into even being able to hear compliments. Most people can hear a compliment and then they can ride on that. I mean, and that can be more of a tendency for a 9, right? Sure. Like I'm going to shut out all of the negative feedback and I'm going to ride on the compliments and believe that everything's okay. I think 4's can reverse that and not hear compliments and only hear critique. Yeah. Because they only can hear critique and see how they've fallen short from what the picture was in their head. So him even being able to just hear that from you in that moment. Right. And hold on to it now, like year and a half later, right? Yeah. Yeah. So is that's very cool. Great example to see. In real life.
And I think it too shows like he talked about this some about how, being a leader of a team, in ministry, it was just different, and how he's kind of having to change his understanding of that. And I think a lot of that is one of the things that caught on for me was he surrounded himself with people who are filling those gaps for him, that are the highly effective, highly structured, also like some, visionary, but like in a different way, like can see a different side maybe, or a different facet of the vision than he can. And maybe more, kind of in that direction that takes him, kind of almost more focused, like helps him to drive a certain direction, because he's getting, again, the external feedback of like, no, this is the right way to go because you have this knowledge, you have this expertise, you have this wisdom, whatever it may be. But I think I started to see that when I was in person with him, but then just watching the company grow, having that conversation with him, it's like, oh, like, no, like this, like these are really important people that you surrounded yourself with to really drive that focus. Because, to be honest, when we first met at the conference, was the first time we met, like there were just a lot of possibilities, right? Like early on in business. I mean, literally 8 months, you said? Literally 8 months in, right? Throwing their conference. like nuts. Like I would never do that. Like
I love the bravery.
I would never do it.
I want some.
But also understanding like there was just a lot of potential available to them at that point. A lot of different directions to go. And they've really just kind of like honed it in, and they've got their, they've got their words, they've got their headlines, they've got their specific niches. Like, it's just really impressive. And I think, that is a representation of that vision, but then also surrounding yourself with people who can help you accomplish that vision. So.
Yeah, I think too, again, like 9s and 4s, we share this in common of this, like we're like withdrawn types when it comes to relationship. We don't want to, there's different motivations behind it, obviously, but like our natural tendency isn't going to be to depend on people. So for him to immediately go for that, and, I'm sure some of that was baked in ministry, but you can do an opposites thing, right? And he chose not to do that. Just staying aware of himself and what he needed, and what the company probably needs too. And so it's very cool to see some of that in real life.
Yeah. I think, again, like it's just interesting to process in the moment right now. Like the different experiences I think you can have with different types.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the point, and you just mentioned it, like, to have too much of a surface level knowledge of something doesn't really help you. Like it's less of a tool at that point.
Yeah.
Where if you can dig a little bit deeper and have a little bit more knowledge, that tool becomes far more effective. And I think in this case, having the deep dive, and then, I don't know if we structured it intentionally this way. It feels like we did. Like having a deep dive and then an interview and then a debrief. Yeah. I mean, we thought that through.
We did.
But what I'm saying is it's far more effective than I realized, because like I think for me, like it's giving me the tools to understand the experiences I've had in the past with a certain type, the experience that I'm hearing or witnessing now with a certain type, especially obviously the people who come and talk to us, and then reconciling the two to say like, it's not that like necessarily like I've had bad experiences. It's I've had a different experience with a different person who's at a different place, and like
might have a different wing, might have a different subtype.
Right. And also what if they knew, like just a little bit more, like what if they knew just a little bit more about who they are, how they're created, how they're made, what their default is, like where they retreat to, where they run to, like all those kinds of things. Because it felt like with Jason in particular, like, I don't know his full Enneagram like story, but like he is tuned in enough, and like you said, like has enough knowledge to know when things are going a certain direction, and when he either needs to correct or needs to go do stand-up comedy one night, or like all of those things, like those feel like very intentional choices based off the feedback he's getting, either from internal or external, whatever it may be, but he has enough knowledge to make that choice. Yeah,
I agree. I'm having a pottery metaphor happen.
Okay, go for it. Love it.
Because it is kind of like, in order to throw a pottery vessel, you have to know how to work a wheel.
Okay.
Right? Like there are basic things you have to know.
Sure.
And you're not going to get anywhere without that knowledge, like how to turn it on, how to use the foot pedal, how fast the wheel should go to center it, and then how to open it up. But then this amazing thing happens if you watch pottery videos on Instagram. Watch them. Very relaxing. Everybody starts pulling up the walls of their vessel a little differently.
Okay.
A lot of people will center a little differently, but that's mostly the same. You have to do those things.
Yeah.
But everybody starts pulling up the walls of their vessel a little differently. And they use a few different tools to give it the right shape that they want to have.
Yeah.
And so that kind of makes me think of what you're saying, like with the Enneagram, is there are some really basic things that you have to have this to start putting into practice. You have to know how to turn the wheel on. You have to know how fast. You have to have it spinning in the right direction. Like all of those things have to happen. But then your hands are shaped differently from my hands.
Right.
And so we're going to have like different tendencies, and we're going to have different clay preferences, all of this stuff. So that's my pottery metaphor to kind of say, like, it's similar with Enneagram, is there are some really foundational basics that you need to start applying it to your life. Yeah. And then once you do, understanding what's most beneficial for you to grow more whole. Yeah. And kind of adding on to the practice, as you go. Is what can make it like super effective in my opinion. So, but that looks different. That part looks different for everybody.
Right. So. Which I think is kind of the key, in the sense of like, we want to, you just talked about this, like boxing on your, was it a reel?
I did. I made a reel with the Taylor Swift song.
Nice.
So fancy.
But like boxing, like being boxed in or boxing people in, and kind of the use of the Enneagram to try to do some of those things, where it's kind of like, no, like there's a certain level of knowledge that is helpful. But a lot of it after that is a whole lot of like self-discovery and self-exploration of what this actually means when it applies to me. And I think that is a lot of what we heard with Jason, is like, there's been the opportunity, and frankly, through a lot of different contexts, I think, for him to start to discover, like he even talked about like, maybe I was the 3 when I was in my 20s, because I was like hyper effective, and I just want to get it done.
I have theories about that. But.
But then having like a moment, like where it's like a crisis moment, and things shifted and things changed, and he had to learn a new part of himself and learn how he handled failure and things like that. And I think all of those hit us all differently, even in our core types, like even in our core types, like we're going to all think and feel and handle something like that differently. But having the basic foundation seems so, like for him, when we were talking to him, like just that has allowed him to see more broadly what he can do, and then those places on where there's the gaps that he needs help to fill in. So I have like half a shameless plug, but it's also just like advice as well. And like I think the key to that, of what you're saying, is this idea of reflection, and like even what you and I are doing right now, of just this idea of like, this is what resonated with me, this is what bothered me, or this is what I'm really gonna carry with me forward for the rest of my life, in that practice of reflection all the time. And like, it's a big reason that when I teach Enneagram, I like include a butt ton of reflection questions. I also do this in the rhythms class too. Like I'm just always throwing reflection questions at people. And I'm going to start sending them out weekly from my email. So if you want to get in on that, like regular practice of just reflection, I'm not going to lie. I get bad at it when I'm stubborn about growing. Sure. Like when I get into a season where I'm like, if I reflect on this stuff,
I will never be the same again. Like I kind of know if I sit with some of this stuff longer, so then I'll like put my reflection practice off into a side and like refuse to do it, because I know if I keep going down that road, like I'm never going back to what this is. And so that becomes like the huge kind of, that becomes the differentiator of like fun fact to practice, is this idea of reflecting, really. So.
Yeah. That's really good. I feel like I feel like, go ahead and shameless plug all you want, because I feel
Thanks, John.
No, but like, even so, I had a thought and I'm trying to reel it back in because it was towards the top of what you were talking about. But anyways, so I think for like, oh, that's what it was. I'm sorry. Okay. So yes, like I think the thing too that's hitting me through all of this is thinking about our friends who are 4s. Again, like we're, coming at it from a 9 perspective, I do think we spend time in our heads reflecting. We're naturally pretty good at that. Yeah. And so I think what we struggle with sometimes, and maybe, and this is what I heard from Jason, is like, as a 4, I need to hear your reflection of me, like of what I've done, of what I've accomplished, of like he needs to hear from us. And we talked about how do we love a 4 well? Right. But I think like even just in that conversation, it was like loving a 4 well for him is like getting that feedback and being encouraging with it. Like being the encourager that says, hey, that might not have looked the way you wanted it to look, but like, here's what I saw. Yeah. I've been thinking about it, like, because we are like, that's just who we are as 9s. Like, we're thinking about it. I've been thinking about it, like, and let our voices kind of be heard in this place.
All the way be heard.
Right. Yeah. Versus like, he's fine.
They don't care what I think.
They're okay.
That's the refrain in my head.
Right.
They don't care what I think.
Right.
That's not true.
Breaking through that wall, and saying like, no. Like I had that thought for a reason. They need to hear it. Yeah. And especially with, again, like just experience from that conversation, like a 4 needs to hear it so that they can overcome the inside voice that's saying,
yeah, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough all the time.
Yeah. Terrible, horrible, no good. Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
That's totally
right. Yeah. So I think that's great. Anything else?
I could go a lot of places, but I won't make this episode into a 2-hour-long ordeal.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But I do love it. I've ironically, I don't know, it's not ironic. It's just, for whatever reason, I've coached more 4s now than any other type. So, it's just, they keep coming up, and my love for them grows more and more. And if you are a 4 listening to that, you should know that. Yeah. Because they, like I said, I think I said this in the deep dive, I would not want to be in their head.
Right.
Because it can be very rough terrain on them, you know, on their self-reflection. I don't think they think often outwardly about other people that way. I think they see other people with very kind eyes. Yeah. But when they look in the mirror, I think it can be very hard for them to see themselves with the same kindness. Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah. Well, you've offered to do some 4 classes too, so I know those are not happening right now, but
they're closed. They will come back. The email list is the best way to find out about that. So I'll be like rolling out these reflection questions. They should be out, starting to roll out.
Okay.
By the time this episode
airs.
I have some legwork to do, but it's gonna happen, y'all. It's gonna be great.
We all have legwork. It's okay.
So get on the email list and you'll be the first to know. I'm going to start again in the fall.
Cool. So we'll link the email list in the show notes for sure. And if you didn't listen, go back, listen to Jason. If you need kind of that primer on a 4, like go hit up that deep dive on 4's because it's really good.
Episode 47.
47. And
thanks again to Jason. Hire him if you want communications coaching. I mean, sounds like the way to go if you're also going to get a big dose, actually, it sounds like, of health and wholeness to really make you show up in an authentic way. Yeah. I love it.
Be on the lookout for another conference in 2025.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
John will be there.
I'll be there. I'm going.
I'm gonna weasel away my way somehow. You can go. Florida in March. Let's go. Although last time I went to Florida in the spring, it was very rainy the whole time I was there. So.
It was one of those weird things where it's like I packed for Florida and then realized that like, oh, Florida kind of still has spring.
Yeah.
And it's like,
not like hot.
Oh, I'm cold.
I can get cold in this state.
Oh, I should have brought a sweatshirt. Oh, okay. Right. Okay. Got it. But it was beautiful. It was an awesome time. So, awesome. Don't forget to subscribe and share with folks. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see all the video content. Anything else?
Yeah. Rating and review. We love those. We love hearing back from you. We nines need your feedback sometimes too.
We do.
So do that. It has been a while since we had any. I would love to put more on our website.
Yeah.
So you could help us out with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Give us a little review. We'll put it on the website.
That'd
be awesome.
Great. Yeah. But yeah, I think that other than that, check the show notes for links and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Bye.